Hello, everybody, and welcome to our 2021 cybersecurity presentation, where I will review some of the more common cybersecurity threats that you need to be familiar with and share some best practices on how you can protect yourself, your assets, and your important data from hackers and online criminals. Once again, I'm Sergio Mariaca, president of Mariaca Wealth Management, and just like all my other videos, I try to break down some of the key principles around important subjects so that you can be more informed and, in this case, prepared for the threats that we all deal with on a daily basis. So today, technology adoption is increasing at an exponential pace, and it's the leading driver of global change, transforming every aspect of our lives, including how we work, communicate, get our news, socialize, and so much more. And because of the pandemic, which we are hopefully moving on from, digital adoption has taken a quantum leap and transformed how we use technology in profound ways. From virtual schooling, working remotely, telehealth, online entertainment, and of course, an incredible surge in online shopping. And while all of this computing power, connectivity, and innovation affords us all incredible opportunities and benefits that make so many aspects of our lives better and easier. For example, the development of the vaccines could not have happened 10 or even 5 years ago. It also presents many challenges and risks as so much of our lives and critical information is digitized and more accessible than ever. As a result, we're in a battle with hackers and criminal networks who conspire day and night to steal our email, our usernames and passwords, obtain our social security numbers, open credit cards in our name, drain our bank accounts, and seize our computers and hold them for ransom. So far this year, we've had a number of high-profile cyber incidents targeting critical infrastructure, including taking a few meatpacking plants offline, and of course the ransomware attack on the Colonial gas pipeline, where the company had to shell out over $4 million to restore their network. We're also very familiar with the large-scale breaches that have been occurring over the years. So it's not a surprise that in 2020, over 14 million Americans fell victim to identity theft and fraud, many of them from these large-scale data breaches. And in 2019, over $12.9 billion were stolen from identity theft victims in the U.S. Now, the good news is that we have good insight and resources on how to further secure and protect our critical information and accounts from cyber breaches and theft. First of all, we need to act as if our personal data is already exposed and in the hands of cyber criminals, because it likely is. Next, we need to arm ourselves with good information and develop sound cyber hygiene to help protect our critical data, devices, and secure our network entry points. So in this presentation, I'm going to highlight some of the best practices around cyber hygiene and share some of the precautionary steps you should be taking to keep your critical information secure and protected. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So I just suggested that we need to assume that our data and our information has already been exposed and in the hands of cyber criminals. And that's because it probably has been. And over the last 5 years or so, we have had some, and there's many more, some large, wide-scale data breaches. I do business with a lot of these companies. I'm quite certain some of my information is out there in the hands of cyber criminals. I don't know what information, so it's imperative that I have really good online cyber hygiene and I use best practices, and that's what this whole presentation is about. By the way, I'm going to be drawing and writing on a glass surface, so that tapping you hear, there's nothing I can do about it. It's not your mind playing tricks on you. I hope it is not too distracting. All right, so what are some of the other ways thieves get our information? Well, it doesn't really have to be that sophisticated. I got a phone call a couple of weeks ago from my cable company. They wanted to save me money. And the person who called me said, "You've been such a great customer. I really haven't. but we want to save you money and tell you about this amazing promotion. Before I do that, I need to verify your identity. Then she started asking me some questions. I didn't really know who she was because she called me. So I told her, I'm not comfortable giving you any information over the phone. I don't know who you are, but tell me everything you are able to tell me. And then I will try calling you back at some other time. And if they confirm that information, I'll be happy to share the information with them, because I will know who I am speaking to, and it worked out okay. So we could casually give out information if we aren't careful and vigilant. So be careful and vigilant. Dumpster diving. You want to shred critical data, reports, paperwork, statements, etc., before you throw them in the dumpster. Mailbox phishing. We know it's a best practice when you go on vacation, have a neighbor or a friend pick up your mail each and every day. Don't leave it out in the mailbox, because oftentimes your mail has sensitive information. But there's a different kind of mailbox phishing that I think of. And in New York City, they've recently installed thousands of tamper-proof mailboxes, because every year around the holidays and around tax season, criminals would take these bottles and they would tie a little string on the bottle. They would cake the bottle in adhesives and glues. They would feed it into the old style blue mailboxes. They'd leave it there for a few minutes and they'd pull it out with a bunch of envelopes stuck to it. And during tax season, they would get tax returns that were being mailed to the IRS with all sorts of important, good information they could use and exploit. During the holidays, they would get cash in cards and gift cards that they could spend, etc. So maybe another reason why we would be better off avoiding snail mail. More on that later. Skimming cards is when thieves will install a card reader at an ATM or maybe at a gas station pump. So you're filling up gas. Unbeknownst to you, when you put your card in there, it's actually reading all of the information on that card. They can then duplicate that card, and now they're in your bank account. We're going to talk about phishing a little bit more later, but this is one of the most dangerous types of hacks out there. And generally what they do is they send out these massive email campaigns. They're casting a huge net, hoping that enough of them go to the right people. One of those common types of phishing campaigns is when they send out an email from a large, well-known, popular financial institution, and the email might say, "Dear valued client, we have recently had a cyber incident and we need you to update your credentials so that we can keep your account secure. So please follow this link in the email that will take you to a website that looks just like the actual website of that large financial institution." And then the people put in their username, which many times could be their email address, and then they put in their password, and then the system pretends to help them change their password. But what they're really doing is they're giving their absolute credentials to a network of hackers and cyber criminals who will turn around and get into their bank account and create all sorts of problems. So we're going to spend some time showing you how you can identify those phishing emails. Shoulder surfing, not very sophisticated. This is when, for example, you're at the ATM and you put in your PIN. Somebody behind you pulls out their phone. It looks like they're looking at photos, but they're actually filming your PIN number. Of course, they would need some more information beyond that, but that's one way they could get your PIN number. Or you're in a bank and you're filling out loan paperwork, or you're filling out a deposit slip, and they can get some information from you by filming what you're doing. So just have good situational awareness when you are filling out forms that should be confidential. And then, of course, we talked about mass data breaches. All right, tips to avoid identity theft. Well, we talked about this just a little bit. Don't talk about confidential information where you can be heard. So once again, just understand your environment and who is around you and use good judgment. Shred sensitive files. So the website that we created for this presentation has some additional resources. One of them is a document retention report. So we list various documents. We tell you how long you should keep those documents. Of course, while you keep them, you want to keep them securely. But then once they're beyond that time frame, you want to shred them. Okay. Protect your email, your mailbox. Email mailbox as well as the one out by the street. We talked about that. Check your credit report every year. Another resource we provided in that website is called 10 Things You Need to Do Now. And in that, we have instructions on how you can check your credit card free every single year, and you're going to want to make sure you do that. Make a habit of scrutinizing your bank and credit card statements, whether they come in the mail or they come to you electronically. That is a really good opportunity to look for things you don't recognize, whether it's a payee, an amount, something that is out of place. You want to catch these things as quick as possible before they snowball into a bigger problem and they're harder to fix. Photocopy the contents of your wallet. Why would you want to do that? Well, if your wallet is misplaced, lost, or stolen, many people can't remember what's in their wallet. They might have 6 cards, 3 credit cards, a couple of bank cards, and a driver's license. But you might not remember all of that. And so it's important, if you ever misplace, lose, or have your wallet stolen, that you know exactly who you need to contact and you can contact them quickly. So now would be a good time to take out your wallet, open up your purse, see what's in there. Maybe you have cards that you haven't used in years and you have no expectation that you're going to use them. So why don't you take them out? And then memorize important numbers. We're not talking about phone numbers here. We're talking about account numbers. We're talking about ATM pins. We're talking about financial numbers, passwords, account numbers that it might make sense for you to be able to remember from time to time. All right. Look for signs of identity theft. Inquiries from companies that you've never contacted. So if a company calls you, I've heard this not too long ago, somebody had, and I still don't understand how this happened, but I was speaking to somebody and they found out that someone was able to open a mortgage in their name without any indication. And somehow after that loan was closed, they received some kind of documentation in the mail they didn't recognize. They called up the institution. Lo and behold, they found that somebody else had opened up this mortgage and they were able to fix it, but it was quite painful to do. So if you get inquiries from companies you've never contacted or accounts you didn't open or don't recognize, those are really good really good indications that you've got a problem. Incorrect amounts on your account statements also, you're going to want to follow up on those. So 5 tips to keep your computer safe. Number 1, you want to turn on the screen activity lock. When I get up every day to go get coffee or go speak to somebody in the office, my screen locks up after 2 minutes. If I walk away from my cell phone, after 1 minute, it locks up. And you're going to need my face because my cell phone has facial recognition. I also have a code in case it doesn't recognize me for some reason, which that doesn't ever happen. But if I'm riding my bike and I have my bike helmet on and I look at my phone, it won't recognize me, so I have to put in the code. And you also want a password to get back into your computer as well. So when I come back with my coffee in the office, I need to enter that difficult password, which I change periodically. And that way, while my computer is idle or I step away from it, no one else can get into it. Update your virus protection software regularly. Virus protection software gets updated because they find new risks out there. And so the software is always being updated with the newest and latest protection. And if you don't have that, then you are exposed to the new issues they're finding out there. You can set up automatic updates in pretty much all of these. Do not open up files sent by strangers. There's no need to. This is one of the best ways you can get malware or a virus on your computer. And once you download those, you are in big trouble sometimes. So be very careful. Even if you get a file or an attachment from somebody you do know, but you weren't expecting them to send you anything, that may be an indication that their email was breached and somebody is using their contact list and their email system to send viruses out. So pick up the phone, call that person up and say, hey, I got this strange email, haven't seen, received an email from you in some time, or it looks like something you would not send. Was this truly from you? And it would not be surprising if they said, you know what, this is the third call I've just received. Get rid of it. Be very careful about using file sharing programs. In fact, don't use file sharing programs. Don't use freeware programs. Listen, if it's free, you're either going to have to deal with a lot of ads, and that's how they generate revenue for this free software. I just feel like if it's free, they might not be updating it as well as maybe the software where you have to pay a subscription for. And then look for the lock icon, this guy over here. When you're on financial websites, oftentimes you'll see that lock in the address bar or maybe at the bottom right-hand corner, sometimes the left-hand corner. If you hover over that lock, it will give you some of the security information of that site, and it'll tell you that all of the traffic is encrypted, etc. And you'll have a sense of how secure you are on that particular site. Update all your software always for all computers and mobile devices. We walk around every day with these little computers that have more computing power in them than the whole world had in the end of the 1980s. And so we need to make sure that those mobile devices are also updated. So we want to set automatic updates for all of our critical computer programs. We also want to set it up for all of our mobile apps, especially the ones we use the most that might have access to important information. 90% of these updates close security vulnerabilities. So we really want to have the most up-to-date patches and software. Set up auto update features. You can do this for all of your computers. You can even do this for a lot of the mobile apps as well. And then you want a really good and automatically updated antivirus software. Back up your files so you never pay ransomware extortion. I heard a statistic the other day, and a gentleman from Cyber Command in the U.S. government suggested that 88% of those companies that end up paying a ransom, all they're really doing is encouraging those companies to hit them again, because 50% or so get hit again. But 88% of them pay the ransom. Now, of course, they're paying the ransom to criminals. And when they get the encryption key to be able to unlock their data and reestablish their network and get their business back up and running. You can think of the Colonial Pipeline that was shut down for several days. They had to pay $4 million. 88% of those companies still have problems getting their data back. There's data loss and other kinds of issues. So when you're dealing with criminals, you probably want to figure out a way so you never have to deal with them and you don't get extorted. There is this idea, it's called the rule of three. First of all, you have your data on your computer, in your network, on your servers. That's number one. Number two, you might have a physical backup. So once a week, once a day, you back all this critical information up to an external drive of some kind you can take home. It can be off-site. And then number three, you consider a cloud storage solution. If you have all three, well, certainly you'll have everything on your computer, but if you add these two redundant backup systems, if you ever get hit by ransomware and your data is, frozen, you've got your own backup and you can be up and running pretty quickly and you don't have to worry about paying the ransom. All right, secure your home Wi-Fi network. You want to have, at the end of the day, an encrypted wireless router. They all have these security features. My suggestion, and I'm not really going to spend too much time here, is if you have a Wi-Fi router right now, you're not sure about what security settings you have, and if you have the best ones. You also want to make sure you have updated firmware. You also want to make sure you change the administration and passwords. The best thing you can do is call customer service. So go home. You might be home already. Look at your Wi-Fi router, call customer service, ask them to walk you through the security settings. If you buy a new one, do the same thing, have them set it up correctly for you. All right, using public Wi-Fi with extreme caution. First of all, avoid any sensitive data transmissions, so financial transactions or checking email when you're on public Wi-Fi. A better approach would be to use your smartphone as a hotspot if you have that functionality, or just use your mobile network, use your phone and check your email through your phone, surf the internet, go to your bank app, etc. That's safer than generally using public Wi-Fi. Now, if you do a lot of traveling and you find yourself using public Wi-Fi quite frequently, it might make sense to invest in a virtual private network. This just makes certain that all of the data is transferring in an encrypted way, and it really limits any bad actors from capturing that information. Beat the password paradox. This is pretty incredible. Not surprising. 73% of people use the same password for multiple sites. 33%, and this is horrible, use one password for every site they visit. So it's not surprising that every second an email account gets hacked in the United States, and hacked passwords, most of the time this is email, are the cause for 81% of data breaches, according to Centrify in 2017. And, we heard about a week or so ago, the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack. That happened because somebody had their email hacked and they got into the network and it went from there. So I'm going to tell you how you can beat the password paradox in a few slides. It's really super easy and very important. All right, well, here we go. So you want to create passwords that are hard to hack. The more difficult your password is, the more difficult it is going to be for anybody to hack it. And if you have a difficult and strong password for each one of your apps and financial institutions and all the places that you log in, then they have a difficult time hacking all of those. If you use a fairly easy password across the full spectrum of every place you log into, then it's super easy for them to really create a lot of trouble for you. Okay, so you want to use a different password for each account. You want to be creative. You want to have letters, numbers, and special characters. Longer is better. And then change your password several times per year. For my most sensitive data, I change my password monthly. For very sensitive, but a little less than the most sensitive, like my banks, I change those quarterly. And then for other types of things, I might change them once a year. It just depends, but I've got other layers of security. And I use something called a password manager. So I don't ever have to remember my passwords. I just need to know one very strong master password. So when I wake up in the morning and as I'm having my coffee, I open up my laptop, I put in my master password to get into my password management system, and then that takes me into my daily calendar, my email, and everything else. But before I actually get into any of those tools, it then sends me a code to my cell phone, and that's called two-factor authentication. So not only do I need a very strong password, I also need my phone. So when I get onto Amazon and I want to buy something, I have to have my phone nearby, because when I log in and the password manager enters that difficult and strong, very long password, then it sends a code to my phone, and I've got a minute or so to enter that code. And if I do it correctly, then I'm in Amazon. If I don't, then I'm locked out and I don't get in. This is an example of a password that I would use for one of my banks. While I was putting this presentation together, I went on to my password manager. I said, give me a password with 35 characters, one that has numbers, letters, and symbols, and 35 characters long. Now, if I have a bank that allows 50 characters, I'm going to use a password with 50 characters. It doesn't matter. My password manager does all the hard work. They generate the passwords. I just tell it how many characters long, and it does that. And then it stores my encrypted passwords in the cloud. And it's also available on my mobile device. So if I'm on my phone and I want to check my bank account, for example, or my email, it will enter that password for me. All I have to do is, it uses my facial recognition. So not a lot of people look as ugly as I do. So no problems there. All right. Create secret email addresses for your financial accounts. I've been doing this for about 5 years. So I signed up for electronic statements for all of my brokerage, investment, and bank and credit card accounts. So these are my most sensitive accounts. My email address doesn't have my first name, no last name, no initials, doesn't have my birth date, doesn't have any identifying information at all, but it's an email address I only use for these accounts. I've had this email address for 5 years. I've never gotten one spam email, because no one would ever recognize that email address as a traditional email address. It's really unique and difficult. I also use the password manager and two-factor authentication to get into that account. And so all my statements are there and available whenever I want to read them, and I look over them every month, and it's just super easy. They are all in one place, and I can go back, and I got 5 years of data there. All right, enable two-step verification. Kind of told you what it's all about, but I use it for my email, all my financial accounts, my cloud storage, and then I use it for all my business accounts as well. and I use it for Amazon and other really important sensitive accounts. The way two-factor works, I enter my master password. My password manager enters the very strong password and my username. And then the second step in that verification is a code is sent to my cell phone. So to get into my email address or my email account, to get into any of my banking and credit card accounts, to get in my cloud storage, to get in my schedule, to get into all of my business accounts, you not only have to have a really, really difficult password and understand that, but you also need to have my cell phone. And that makes it really, really difficult. The beautiful thing is most sites have this today. Very easy to implement and manage. Set up text or email activity alerts. This is beautiful. Anytime anybody buys anything using one of my cards, my bank accounts, my credit cards, etc., I get a text alert as long as they spend over $1. So any money leaving my account, I get a text alert. That means that when I go to a restaurant and I hand my credit card to the waiter walks to the cash register and, does what they do. Before they come back to be able to sign provide the tip and, sign the credit card statement, I actually get a text telling me that I've already spent that money before they even arrive. This can be set up online. It's super easy. And if I ever see anything that I don't recognize or it's out of order, this is a very, very quick alert to let me know that something's going on that might not be going on and that warrants my investigation. So I don't have to wait until I get that monthly statement to find out that somebody has access to my account. I get it immediately. Set up a verbal password for all bank and credit card accounts. Lots of companies are doing this right now. It's super easy. You call up your bank and you say, listen, anytime I call in the future, I want you to ask for this secret code, and you just come up with a word, code word that you can change periodically. We typically change them once a year. It's just another layer of protection that the cyber criminals are not going to have. So anytime you call these financial institutions, they're going to ask you that code. You can change it as frequently as you want. We typically change it annually. And then you just contact your bank and get it set up. Super easy. All right, let's talk about the 10-second cybersecurity rule that will help you fend off the phishers. The acronym for email is examine, message, and inspect links. So, email, examine, message, inspect links. So remember that. So the idea behind this is that phishers try to get us to react quickly to an email, because the quicker we react, we're not paying attention to some of the things that might give it away that this is not that this is a phishing email and it's not from the company that it suggests that it might be from. So oftentimes they might have a subject line with a warning like account closed, security alert, incoming fax received, or oftentimes I'll get one that suggests that you've got some voicemails or emails that you did not open, so download this file and you'll be able to see them. They're trying to get your attention. And the idea behind this is you take about 10 seconds to look at different aspects to really understand who the true email sender is. So you look at the subject line test, see if there's anything there that that looks interesting, that looks out of place. The sender test, oftentimes I'll get an email and it's a phishing email. Let's say it's from Wells Fargo Bank telling me that I need to change my username and password. I get those from time to time, or from Bank of America or from Chase, even if I don't do business with any of those banks, because they are large, popular banks. They are very commonly used for these types of phishing attacks. And when you look at the sender test, you would expect it to say something like customer service at chase.com, for example, if it's coming from Chase. But when you look at the sender address, it might say something totally different that has nothing to do with Chase or Bank of America or whoever it's supposed to come from. You look at the greetings, see if there's any grammatical issues. If they say "Dear Sir" and they don't know your name, you better believe that most banks you do business with, they're going to know your name. So they're going to write it to Sergio Mariaca, to me, for example. But if they say "Dear Sir," "Dear Ma'am," then that should give you an idea that, hey, maybe this isn't correct. Look at the signature. They might have just a signature there that, isn't showing, somebody from a local branch office, if you will. You look at the attachment, see what kind of attachment, look if it looks strange, etc. Of course, don't open it. We're just trying to evaluate the email. And here we inspect the link. Phishers can spoof links. So you might look at the link and it might look like it is coming, in this example, from Facebook. But if you hover your mouse over this, it may say something entirely different. It will show the true link. So the idea here is you take a few minutes when you see an email with an attachment or one asking you to hit a link, and ask yourself a few of these questions, because you want to make sure before you open up a file or you download something or you hit a link that you are absolutely sure that that is a legitimate email and you are not downloading a virus or some malware that is going to freeze up your system and lead to ransomware. Again, if you see an email that comes from somebody you know, but you weren't expecting an email, or it looks out of place or strange, pick up the phone and give them a call before you open up that attachment. All right, freeze your credit and protect your children. All right, I have my credit frozen, and not too long ago, I had to buy a car. And so I just called up the credit bureau. I entered my PIN. I told them I wanted the freeze lifted for one day. They did that. I bought the car, no problem. The freeze went back in place. It is super easy today. You want to do it for all 3 credit bureaus. It'll lock your credit. It's free in every state now. It used to cost money. And you can, even if you have children, you can request that they do a search on your child's Social Security number just to know that nobody is using it. And then you can freeze their credit as well. This is a no-brainer. Unless you are financing things all the time, which I don't think anybody really is doing that, this is super easy to freeze your credit. And then every once in a while, when you need to unfreeze it, all you do is call a number, enter a PIN, very easy. And you can tell them to just unfreeze your credit for a day, 2 days, 3 days, however long you need. And then it goes back into place. All right. How can you reduce the risk, your risk on social media? Here's some 5 tips. First of all, selectively share information. We see a lot of stories out there where somebody shares, and it happens to celebrities all the time. They share that they're on vacation, and then lo and behold, they come back and they find out that their house was broken into. Of course, set your profiles to private on Facebook. Only people who can see my family and read my posts are my friends, and that's really easy to do. Of course, you're also going to want to use very strong passwords. You're going to want to lock your device so that nobody has access to your social media unless you want them to. Think before you post. Set up two-factor authentication. We talked about that before for your financial accounts, but it's really easy to do for your social media as well. How can you protect yourself while traveling? Be careful on social media. You certainly don't want to post that you're going to Africa for a month and then find out you come back home and somebody broke into your home. Never post too many details. Remove personal documents you don't feel you need from your wallet or purse, but make sure you understand what's in there just in case it gets lost or stolen. Don't bring all your credit cards and debit cards, especially if you don't think you're going to need them. As we talked about before, be careful using public Wi-Fi, and certainly if you're on a public computer, I wouldn't log into your email. I certainly wouldn't log into any important accounts. Consider opening a travel-only checking account that only contains enough money for your trip. Maybe do it at a bank where you don't have any other accounts, just to be sure that if they can get access to that one account, there's no other adjoining accounts that they can also link up to. All right, we have that resource at the bottom of the site that had this presentation. There's a document, top 10 steps to take now. You can read it. Here are the 10. There's actually 11. We gave you a bonus. So set up a password manager and strengthen all your passwords. So easy to do. I use LastPass. I used to use RoboForm. There's 1Password. There's a number of them out there. They're all great. You can actually go online and do research on which one is the best for your unique situation. I'm happy to talk to you about it. If anybody wants to call me, I'll show you how mine works. Love to see everybody implement this. Freeze your credit, same for minor children. Very easy to do. If they can't get access to your credit account, they're not opening bank accounts typically. They're certainly not opening loans. I'm talking about the cyber criminals here. It really limits the damage they can do from a financial standpoint. Establish a unique email address for all banking and financial statements. This keeps the statements from going to your post office box or your mailbox. And if you use a very unique email address that you only use from these accounts, it's going to be really easy to be able to manage that email address. You won't get any spam if you do it correctly. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll tell you how I did it. Sign up for online access, switch to electronic statements and electronic bill pay. That kind of flows with number 3. Set up two-factor authentication for all your important accounts. I talked about financial, email, cloud storage. I even mentioned Amazon. So anything that is very important, if they have two-factor, it takes you 2 seconds to set it up and probably 2 seconds to pick up your phone and enter in that code. And it just makes it much more difficult for a hacker to get access to your critical data. Number 6, set up spending and transaction alerts on all your bank and credit card accounts. So if anybody ever spends anything on any of your accounts, you're going to know immediately, much sooner than you would if you were just checking your statements on a monthly basis. Set up verbal passwords with all your bank and credit card accounts. Super easy to do. They all offer it. There is no charge. And it's just one additional layer of protection for you. Make sure all your credit cards have smart chips. If you look at a card, if you got a couple of cards in your wallet, in your purse, some of them have a smart chip. Most of them should, but if you have any that don't, contact the bank. They'll send you a new one, because I'm certain that most financial institutions now are only creating new cards with smart chips. Establish your Social Security account, even if you're not retired or very close to retirement. This is something that's easy to do. It allows you to automatically download your Social Security statements, which is important as you're working towards retirement, because you want to understand what retirement is going to look like, and your Social Security income projection is a critical piece of information for understanding your financial situation in retirement. But even when you are 20, 30 years from retiring, you can still open up your Social Security account and establish it. Every single year, about $5 billion in fraudulent Social Security distributions are made to hackers who create Social Security accounts in somebody else's name. A couple of years ago at our annual Shred event, we had an FBI agent, and he was talking about how every single year people go to establish their Social Security payments and set up their Social Security income, only to find out that the U.S. Treasury has been paying their Social Security to somebody else. Now, they're not on the hook for that money, but it creates a problem that they have to fix, and they end up spending hours and hours on the phone filling out all sorts of affidavits and trying to prove that it wasn't theirs, and it's just a nightmare. So one of the easiest things you can do is, well before you turn the age of 62, hopefully you're not taking Social Security that early anyway, unless you absolutely have to, but you should establish your Social Security account as soon as possible. It makes sense for a lot of reasons. And then set up automatic updates for all your devices and software. Again, 90% of those updates and patches are to fix security issues, and you want to make sure you have the best, most up-to-date protection at all times. And it's not only for your computers, it's also for your mobile devices, and it's for all the software on your computers. And then here's your bonus. Number 11 is set up cloud storage for important documents, photos, and records, and consider offline backup as well. Remember, you want the rule of three. You want the local on your computer. You want a hard drive, external, that you can maybe take home, keep off site. But you want to back it up enough so that it always has up-to-date information. And then you can also create a cloud, or maybe even 2 cloud backups. That redundancy will protect you from ransomware issues. Now, these are the maintenance activities. Now, we update this list each and every year. If you're a client, you'll continue to get these, and we update this presentation as well. But these are the things that you always need to be doing, sometimes throughout the year, but at least once a year. Change your passwords quarterly for financial, email, and storage applications, and annually for all others. So the more sensitive it is, you want that frequency to happen more often. Check your free credit report each and every year. Now, all this information is in the report that came on the website with this presentation, but you can go to annualcreditreport.com and you can check your credit report each and every year for free. Register the you can actually do this monthly now because of the pandemic. Register for the Do Not Call registry for home and mobile phone. Doesn't really work so well because I do this each and every year, but I imagine it is working for some calls that I'm not receiving, but I'm still getting those warranty cards on a vehicle that I haven't had for about 10 years. Remove your name from pre-screened offers, calling this number, and do this for minors as well. If there's any questions any of you have on any of this information, and just give us a call, and I'm happy to walk you through how I have approached some of these best practices and answer any questions you have. In closing, please take this seriously. Don't wait to be a victim before you act. Update your systems and procedures now. I can promise you the time and effort it takes to implement these best practices is minimal compared to what it takes to recover and restore your identity and property once you've experienced a breach. Of course, there is no guarantee that these steps will provide 100% protection for you and your data. Nothing can do that. But hackers are opportunistic and they are looking for easy wins by targeting the unprepared. So our job is to make it as difficult as possible to steal our identity, breach our email, or gain access to our accounts. So hopefully they move on to the next target. Now, if you go back to the special website we created for this video, you're going to find additional resources that will provide you more guidance on these steps, including our report entitled Top 10 Things to Do Now. We also have a report on protecting your mobile devices, a report on general document retention standards, and information on what steps to take if you feel like your information or your accounts have been compromised, which hopefully you'll never need. In closing, thank you for your time and attention. I sure hope this was helpful. Now, please follow us on social media where we post these kinds of videos and other content, and go out there and enjoy the rest of the summer.